Hey everyone, I'm
Hey
Victor
everyone,
Dwyer,
I'm
and
Victor
this is the
Dwyer, and this is
Mind
the Mind
Workshop
Workshop
podcast.
podcast.
And
And
today we're going to be talking about really breaking open forgiveness and breaking open gratitude and really figuring out how to be a happier person. And at the Mind Workshop podcast, it's really all about breaking apart your mind and figuring out how to really be a happier person and having that positive mindset. So today we have Terry on. I'm really excited to have this conversation. Terry, please tell the audience about who you are and how you kind of got into all this.
Oh, wow. So I am a life coach. I also do transformational retreats, and I just help people to understand that they have the power to create their life and their reality, and of course, their happiness. I got into this probably because I was searching for happiness in all the wrong places.
Mhm.
I couldn't understand why the happily ever after fairy tale that I ascribed to in my youth just wasn't coming true, happening for me. I thought I was in the wrong relationship. So I changed relationships over and over and over again. And finally realized that, guess what? My happiness isn't about who I'm with. It's about my relationship with myself. So that's how I got into all this. And now I want to help people understand and learn where to look for their own happiness.
Yeah, that's so important. I used to chase like all these different relationships, and I actually with the video I sent you, like it was like basically went over kind of the always trying to be always trying to have validation from other people. Where I would always chase these relationships with girls, and to say, "Hey, I want to feel validated," but once they started liking me, then I was like, "Okay, I'm not as interested anymore." And it really came down to I wanted that validation, but I didn't really care about the love part. And so I had to first tackle that saying, hey, I don't need to be validated in order to love myself. I can love myself for who I am. And then from there, I'm
Right.
able to have that relationship, chase that relationship for actual love rather than chasing for validation, was a huge transformation for me, at least. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Right. Well, I love your choice of words where you said chase the relationship for love,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because in essence, you can't chase love. You can only be love. And in order to be love, you have to grow and nurture love inside of yourself. So when you get to that point where you understand what is love, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think so many people are confused about what is love really. Most people get into relationships with another person and they say, "Oh my gosh, I love them so much." And the truth is, no, you don't. You need them so much, and they're
Yeah.
confused with need, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think in that respect, we do chase relationships because we need them in order to learn from them and eventually understand that that is not where the love comes from, right? That's where the lessons come from.
Yeah.
And we can have gratitude for that.
Yeah.
But eventually we can own and share that as an extent of who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to mention that a lot of especially for the people that fall in love a lot, there's usually because there's some kind of unmet need that they're chasing, whether if it might be validation, like for example, if they hate who they are and they need someone else to tell them how pretty they are, then they're going to always chase those guys that tell them how pretty they are. They are chasing love for an unmet need, and that's how a lot of us do it. They say, oh, this partner completes me, but that's not the way you
Mhm.
want to think about it, because you want to find a way to complete yourself. Because if you're relying on that relationship to complete yourself, you're going to be vulnerable. Like it's going to be where you're not going to be happy. If you don't love yourself and you hate the way you look, then and you need someone to tell you how pretty you are, it's not going to be a good relationship, because you're always going to be jealous, you're always going to be chasing that, and you're always going to make sure that they're always going to be looking at you and saying that you're pretty. And it's just never going to work until you actually love yourself. So it's
Mhm.
something that you have to look internally and see what is the relationship with yourself first and then start talking about the relationship secondary. And that's why there's so many relationships don't work out, is because the relationship with themselves is so bad.
Right. And I think that's also something interesting that you mentioned. We find out that relationships don't work out. Maybe they really are working out, but they're just not working out for the reasons you think they are, right? So you might say, I'm going to be with this person forever because this person completes me, right? And then you realize that through the relationship, for whatever reason, your needs aren't getting met, you're not feeling loved, you're not feeling validated. And through the relationship, you're learning, you're growing, you're understanding more about yourself. And the relationship actually did meet those needs, just not the way you thought it was going to meet those needs, right? The relationship was a mirror and showed you exactly what you need that you're not finding in this relationship. And it just brings you back to yourself, right? Every relationship always brings you back to yourself. Some relationships last
Yeah.
forever, right? Which is great. That means they're perfectly aligned. You can learn the perfect lessons together exactly as you need to learn them. And some relationships are just meant to be for that particular lesson, right? Until you are ready to learn something else. Because not everybody grows at the same rate, not everybody has the same intentions. Sometimes people grow in separate directions. And the purpose of the relationship, when you first get into it, the purpose changes, right? Because when you first get into the relationship, you're at a certain place, your partner's at a certain place, and you're growing and expanding, because that's what we do. We grow and we expand every day. And if we're not willing or ready or able to grow and expand together, then sometimes that relationship stops, because the one person wants to grow in one direction and the other person wants to grow in the other direction, and there's no ability to meet in the middle, right? And it's
Mhm.
okay when that happens, and it's also okay to love the person enough to allow them to grow and expand in whatever way they are ready to do that. And it's okay to love yourself enough to say, but I need this to grow and expand.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to fate as well. Like I'm not like huge on like for example like chasing. Like for
Mhm.
example, if it doesn't work out, it's not going to work out. Like where those it's kind of when it happens like naturally, when the spark is kind of just there. I realize like wow, this is insanely easy. Like it's not like a thing that you have to like chase for. It kind of just happens naturally over time. And that's what I kind of realized. So obviously I do put effort. There's a balance between like putting effort in it and then also like figure out its fate. But then like having that like balance of like you don't have to chase super hard. It's something that you can just like kind of streamline and say like, hey, like if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen type of thing.
Right. And of course, because all minds are joined, when you put an intention out there into the universe, right? I don't know if it is fate. I think you send out that beacon, and the person that is ready to connect with you is attracted to you, right? Because you are putting out there this magnetic energy, and the right person is picking that up and saying, okay, this person, I'm interested in like learning more about this person. I'm interested in understanding more about this person. So then you come together because of that attraction, right? Which is what the law of attraction is all about.
Yeah. And I used to get rejected by a lot of girls, and you have to kind of go through that process of like going through that rejection over and over and over. And then once you get comfortable with it, saying, "Oh, they're not like rejecting who I am as a person. It's just like they're just not interested right now." It's like, okay, cool. And then like I move on to the next person. But as a guy, it's so hard. Like it's like the most difficult thing in the world to like go up to a girl and ask them either to dance, ask them to on a date or whatever it may be. It's a very, very difficult thing as a guy. And it takes a lot of practice, but eventually you get it down to where like it's a very easy thing. And it just takes like so much practice. And I think that's the biggest hurdle as a guy, is going up to the girl and communicating, hey, I like you, or I think you're attractive. Like, I think we should get to know each other. And like saying those lines is like really really difficult, but once you get it down, like it's a lot easier for sure. But do you have any advice there?
Yeah, so I'm listening to what you're saying, and when you go up to a girl and you say, I think you're attractive and I want to get to know you. So you are obviously attracted to a female that is attractive to you, right? And saying that name,
Yeah.
that is going to hit that need in a woman that needs to feel like you think she's attractive, right? So that's like all of a
Yeah.
sudden she's interested because, oh, I need to feel like I'm attractive, right? So you hit that in
Mhm.
her. So you have to ask yourself, is that the type of woman I want to attract? Do I want to attract a woman who needs her looks validated?
Hmm.
Is that the type of person I want to attract?
No,
I
for me,
guess
no.
I'm asking you, what type of person do you want to attract? What's important to you to find in a partner?
My most important thing is like a lot of people will say like it's intelligence, a lot of people will say it's everything else. For me, it's energy. So meaning that like I just need the girl to have 50% of the amount of energy that I have. I don't expect 100% because I'm crazy and I know how crazy I am, but literally just like 50% of the energy that I have, that's most important. Energy to go and do things, basically.
Okay. So that's what I was going to ask you, the energy to actually be active. And so what are the types of things that you enjoy doing that you would want your partner to do with you?
Yeah, so like dancing, volleyball, like going out to eat, basically just anything beside like staying inside, going and watching Netflix. Literally like,
Right.
going on a walk, go like literally just doing anything that's like active, and going and doing stuff.
Yeah. So that's great. So maybe the next time you see someone that you're attracted to and you're reading their energetic level and they seem really upbeat, right? Maybe you could say, "Hey, look, I'm just really attracted to your energy. You want to go dance with me?" Instead of I think you're very attractive, right? So that way now the person's like, "Wow, he likes my energy." Some people say I'm
Sorry,
looks like
are you there? I think one of us
I
cut
am.
out. I don't know which one of us cut out.
I
Say
don't
that
either.
last. Yes, say that last sentence again. I missed the last sentence you said.
So I said, maybe when you are talking to someone, tell them that you're attracted to their energy, right? And then you'll attract more people who like that type of validation and they feel like, oh wow, he likes my energy. Some people think I'm too much. So I'm glad that you like my energy because I love to do all kinds of things. And then you can start the conversation about I like volleyball, I like to hike, I like to dance, I like to do all of these energetic things, right?
Hmm.
So it's just really very intentional. And words are so powerful in creating your reality. It starts
Yeah.
obviously with your mind, right? You think the thought and then you say the word and then you create your reality based on that. So
Hmm.
it's just you just need to be mindful about what you're trying to attract, who you're trying to attract.
Yeah, and that's great. Do you have any other advice or any other action items that you would give to a guy that's trying to pursue a girl?
Well, I would say the word pursue is probably a word you not don't want to put in your vocabulary anymore.
I don't
And
know what the word
you
I would use.
so you're interested in having a relationship with a partner, right?
Yeah.
Some type of partnership relationship, right? So I guess the question is, you would say, who do I want to attract? Because you are an energetic being. Your
Mhm.
energy is going to be attracting somebody. So instead of pursue, which makes it seem like a hunt, right? Like you're
Mhm.
pursuing something and they're running from you. So you're
Yeah.
automatically in your mind, someone's running away from me and I'm chasing them, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So you could say I want to attract, which makes it easy. Now the partner is just coming to you because you're putting out a certain energetic vibration of energy, of happiness, of zest for life, and you're attracting that same person who has that equal type of energy, right? Like attracts
Mhm.
like, right? Because if you're pursuing somebody, you're always going to attract someone who's going to run away from you.
Yeah, it's true.
Right. So it's
And
the
since I'm
word.
always seeking that validation, it's probably why I do it in the first place. Like trying to
And
chase the
so
people that are interested.
so what is the validation that you want the most?
Um, Me growing up, I didn't like I said, I got rejected a lot. I didn't get practically any girls like basically all through my school, like any school. So I basically got rejected. So there's like that piece where
Mhm,
there's a piece of me that doesn't think a girl can like me.
mhm,
So I had to counter that by saying by chasing girls and showing that a girls do like me. They do enjoy dancing with me. They do enjoy these things because there's a piece of me that doesn't believe that because
right,
it's like so ingrained like a girl can't like me. A girl I have to look better. I have to be wealthy. I have to be successful. I have to do all these things in order to be loved. And I'm trying to like change all that, but it's like at core I'm still trying to counter that voice that says, "Hey, a girl can't love who I am right now," which is not easy.
right, right. So that goes back to something that happened when you were younger, which you just talked about, and but probably even younger still. So we all have these traumas that have happened to us when we were children, really, right? Where we didn't feel validated. You're not good enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not smart enough, maybe you're not safe, right? Some of these. And you have to take a look at when did that happen? What happened in your life that created that story? Because that story is still running your life. It worked back then to protect you, whatever it was. Like for me, for example, my early story was I'm not safe, right? I am afraid and I'm not safe. So I built all these walls so that I would be safe. But then those walls kept people out, or they kept me from going out into the world because I was afraid to go out. But my adult Terry was more than capable of handling that. My 5 year old Terry, no, right? So your 5 year old Victor felt not good enough, not wanted, not whatever the story was, whatever the trauma was that created the story. But your Victor of today, you're amazing, right? So look at what you've done in your world. You're a very good looking young man. You're successful. You've got a lot going for you. But that 5 year old Victor is sabotaging your relationships because
Mhm.
that 5 year old Victor is still telling you you're not enough. So you have to go
Yeah.
back and heal that 5 year old Victor, which is
Mhm.
somehow in your body making you feel that you're not enough. And it's a process of self-love and forgiveness. And there's a lot of tools you can use. I personally use something called the peace process that allows you to identify, where that is in your body and then really stay with it and give it the attention it needs so that you can look at it and look at that pain wherever it is landing in your body and then give it love from yourself, right? Give it the Victor Dwyer love of today. So you have to nurture that child, that inner child that is still running your life because he's still afraid. He still doesn't think he's enough. He still doesn't think he's good enough or whatever it is that he doesn't think, right? And we all have it. We all have those traumas because
Mhm.
of, even well-intentioned caregivers have said things to us or done things trying to protect us. So we've created these stories that need to be healed so that we can just nurture ourselves and be love and be who we are today and let today's Victor run your life. Today's Terry can run my life.
Yeah.
And we create a new story, right? My story used to be I am afraid and I'm not safe. Well, my story today is I am love and I empower others to be love too, right?
Mhm. And it's so important to show that we do see our lives through stories. And I think that's so fascinating how if we ever have a bad experience or a traumatic experience, how we take that story and it becomes isolated by itself. like for that 5-year-old Victor, that story got isolated by itself, and it still runs through subconsciously through the things. But we always live our life through stories, and a lot of people that are negative out there, they're giving themselves the story of, oh, the world sucks, the everything's burning, like it's everything. But in reality, if you have a positive mindset and you only see the positive things out there, we have to remember if we were born 1,000 years ago, we'd be eating moldy bread, drinking muddy water, and not having any AC. And it's 107 out. I'd be dead. So, like, all that sounds awful, god awful. And so, this is the best time to be alive right now. It was, regardless of what the news says, regardless of what social media says, this is the best time to be alive. And that's where we really have to take that negativity bias, the increased likelihood of remembering negative information, and really just consume more positive information, and to really adopt that positive mindset. But I think, to your point, I think it really comes down to, like, really not being comfortable with who we are, not forgiving ourselves, not giving ourselves love, all these different things. And I think that's like where a lot of these insecurities come from, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
No, you're right. And I think too, some people get the wrong idea about self-love. I was chatting with somebody on social media not too long ago, and they said, well, self-love, that's selfish. How can you say that? And my response was, well, if you don't have self-love, you have nothing to give, right? It's kind of like in the airplane when they say, put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on your child. Because if you don't have oxygen, you're not going to be able to help anybody. Well, the same thing happens with love. If you don't have self-love, you cannot share it with anybody. You are just sharing need. You're sharing those needs from the 5-year-old trauma that was created. So nurturing self-love is so important, and also healing that trauma, because what happens is that 5-year-old Terry that didn't feel safe, when she went out into the world, something didn't make her feel safe. So she got triggered, right? And all of a sudden she has to either, say something sarcastic or do something that makes her feel more powerful. All these things we do to protect ourselves. And then we just stuff that traumatic experience down. And then another traumatic experience happens, and we engage in it because we're not safe. So we have to do something that makes us feel empowered to go after that situation, and we stuff that one down. So there are layers and layers and layers of that. I am not safe, I am afraid, that I've buried, and I've buried it in the name of being powerful and a warrior, right? Going out there and like, I'm just going to go get this situation or get that person, and I'm going to do this thing. And that's not healing. So in understanding that there are a lot of layers that we need to forgive and forgive and forgive and forgive until we get down to that core layer of 5-year-old Terry that started the whole thing because she was afraid and she wasn't safe. And you can say, it's okay. I've got you. Today's Terry, I've got you. I know more. I have the ability to love you and to tell you it's okay. I am here for you, and I'm never going to let anything happen to you ever again. And then when you're at that place of self-love and forgiveness, then you can reach out to others in love and realize that when people say something to you, it has nothing to do with you, right? And you don't have to react in a negative way or do something to, defend yourself. You just look at them and realize that all attack is really just a cry for help. And in that, you can look at that person and say, your opinion of me is none of my business. And the reason why it's none of my business is because it really has nothing to do with me. It has to do with that 5-year-old you that is still working through their traumas.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I usually use the spaghetti example about, like, kind of every time you unwind an insecurity and counter and find the root cause and then undo it, like it really is like almost a mindset shift almost every single time. So, like, for example, I used to work 14 hours a day, and where I like had to work, I had to be perfect, I had to be successful, I had to do these things. And like it was kind of a never ending chase. And like kind of every insecurity is like every time I ask myself, okay, why am I working 14 hours a day? Like you got to work, you got to be successful. And it's like why do I have to be successful? And it's like, well, like we just going through, it's like, oh, it's because I'm not comfortable with who I am, and going through that. But once you kind of tackle it, it makes you like really take off that pressure and make it where you kind of do the things that you want to do, rather than always like basically chasing or running away from that insecurity. Like we're either running towards something or running away from something. And a lot of the insecurities that we have, we're always running away from. And
Mhm.
it's almost always the best strategy to just tackle it head on and say, hey, like for some reason, I think I'm fat. No matter how much I work out, no matter how skinny I get, I always think I'm fat. And if you go through that and like ask yourself why, then you can actually tackle the situation. Working out is not going to solve that problem. It's not like, no matter how good you look, no one is ever going to love you more or validate you more. You have to look inside and say, hey, why do I think I'm not enough? Why do I think I suck? And once you tackle that, then you're going to look at working out and you're going to go, wow, I've been working out 8 hours a week. Oh, okay, I only have to work out 2 because I'm happy with my body now. So it really, really makes it where you start doing things that you want to do rather than just running away from your insecurities.
Right, right. That's a good point. And in saying that, you said you're either running towards something or away from something, right? And that's because most of our thoughts are usually in the past, which is over. So it really doesn't exist, or in the future, which hasn't happened yet. So that doesn't exist. So your thoughts are in places that can't help you right now. Did you know that you have approximately 60,000 thoughts a day?
Hmm. Wow. I did not.
60,000 thoughts a day. And just imagine, because your thoughts are creating your reality, every thought you think is creating your reality. So if you are thinking about things in the past, you're probably stuck because you're just regurgitating thoughts over and over and over again. So you can't move forward because those thoughts are creating your reality, and your mind is in the past. So there's no way you can move forward. And if you're worried about the future, which hasn't happened yet, again, that fear is keeping you stuck in a place that hasn't happened yet, afraid of what might happen. And so those thoughts are also not helping you to create your life. That's why it's so important to quiet your mind and just be here now in this moment so that you can actually create from a place that exists and a place that's real.
Yeah. And what would your advice be to someone that's like just on the surface level trying to tackle their insecurities? Like, what is your kind of like step process that you would say to someone that, let's just use the working out example,
Mhm.
where they like, I'm a person that's super driven to work out. I think working out is my life. I think I just love working out. And in reality, I just think I'm fat. This is an insecurity I had. No matter how much I worked out, I would always think I'm fat. What
Right.
advice would you give to that person to set, like, rather than them chasing working out every time, like chasing that
Mhm.
and finding what internally is the problem? What would be your solution to kind of tackle that insecurity and figure out what it is?
Well, the first thing I would want to do is to explain who you are, right? To find out, do you know who you are? Because I
Mhm.
think that's a big misconception. People think that they are this body, right? And I think it's important to understand that you have a body, but you are not your body. Your body is just a vehicle, right? Your body is a vehicle, kind of like your computer, except it can move around, right?
Yeah.
So your body is your vehicle, and you can use it to be active, to run and jump and play volleyball and to go out and meet people, and or you could use it to just sit on the couch and do nothing, right? But this is
Yeah.
this is your kind of biological computer, your body, right? So the
Mhm.
first thing is to help people understand that they're not their body. Their
Mhm.
body is is a gift. It's an amazing gift that was given to them, but it's like a computer, kind of like a car too, in a sense. But the crazy part is let's just say, for example, someone gave you a brand new car for free, right?
Hmm.
How are you going to treat that car?
I would treat it like I would treat it well. Like I would make sure that nothing hurts the new car, right?
Right. And this car can, take you places. It can do all kinds of things. I mean, would you bring it to the gas station and put gas in it?
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah.
Well, what if it was a really nice car and it needed like some kind of premium gas? Would you put the gas that isn't so good for it, or would you put premium gas in the car?
I would put the premium gas in it.
Right, because if you didn't, something would go wrong, right? And would you get the oil changed every 3,000 miles, or depending on the type of oil you put in it, right? And why would you
Yep.
do that?
To help it out and make sure it's like maintained.
Exactly, exactly. So we
Hmm.
are given this biological machine, and do we treat it as good as we treat our cars?
Usually not. I definitely don't.
Right? Usually not. Because we don't look at it for what it is, right? We confuse it with who we are. So when we get upset or we get sad, we're like, well, I'm going to go, I'm going to have this chocolate ice cream, or I'm going to have this, big piece of chocolate cake because it's going to make me feel good. And I want it and I like it, right? Which, okay, every once in a while is all right. But we don't understand that this body is a machine that can allow us to do whatever we want in this world. And the better care we take of this body, the more it's going to allow us to use it for what we want. So that would be the first thing I would try to explain to people. Even though we kind of got off topic, right? Not really talking about that particular situation, but it's important to understand, like, what is this? What is this body? Who am I and what am I, right? So what
Yeah.
about your mind? Are you your mind?
No, we are not the thoughts associated with our mind. We are the my opinion of the self is we are the conscious awareness of everything that goes around us. So meaning that we are not technically our mind, we are our conscious awareness of our thoughts that happen inside of us
Right,
is my definition of it.
exactly. So just like your car and just like your body, you have to be aware of what you're feeding your mind, right? So we have a choice. Actually, we have 60,000 choices every single day. What are we going to feed our mind today? Right?
Mhm.
Are we going to listen to Victor Dwyer about happiness and put something in our mind that actually could help us to grow and expand and create more happiness in our life? Or are we going to gossip about something? Are we going to be afraid of what's happening in the world and share all of that? Are we going to be angry? Which is, again, only an expression of fear, another expression of fear, right? Because they're technically all of your mind's thoughts come from two places: love or fear. That's it.
Mhm.
Love or
Yeah.
fear. There's no other root cause of your thoughts. So you have 60,000 choices to choose love or fear, right? So then it gets back to, what am I going to feed my mind today? And how am I going to nurture my mind? So
Can you
getting back
go?
to your, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's a good time to break. So go ahead and ask
I
me a
was gonna
question.
say, like on your topic of love and fear, can you go into what we talked about how all emotions go back down to love and fear? I thought that was really fascinating. About like
Sure.
we really don't have very many other emotions. Everything just comes down to love and fear. I thought that was really fascinating.
Right. So let's imagine there's a line right here. And everything that doesn't bring you joy is below the line. Everything that brings you peace and happiness is above the line, right? You can trace back everything below the line to the root cause of fear. So just name something that would be below the line that doesn't bring you peace or joy.
I'll use disgust again. I'll use disgust again from what we said last time.
Okay. So you disgust. So tell me what does disgust mean to you?
Disgust means something nasty, something gross, something yeah, something nasty and gross.
Okay. And why does it what do you associate nasty and gross with?
Snot. I think
Okay.
snot is pretty
So,
gross
so it's not. And why do you think snot is gross?
because it's like gross and sticky, and
Gross
I
and
guess
sticky,
other people would also find it gross.
right? So let's just imagine you're an infant and you have a runny nose, right? Or maybe you're two and you have a runny. I mean, you've seen a lot of toddlers with runny nose, and you see it, right?
Hmm.
Are they grossed out by it?
No.
No, they don't care. They don't care. Is it sticky to them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't bother them, right? It doesn't bother them until someone says to them, "Ew, that's gross," right?
Yeah.
And so now all of a sudden, what do they feel? I'm
Shame.
afraid. I'm
Oh yeah, afraid.
ashamed.
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm ashamed because I'm not attractive. I'm not. I have this snot on my nose. People are making fun of me, right? I'm not accepted. I'm cast out of society, right? Which is a big fear, right? I
Hmm.
don't fit in. I don't belong if I have snot, right? Running down my nose. So it goes back to fear. Everything goes back to fear, right? Fear of not being accepted, fear of not being good enough, fear of not being attractive, not being liked,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. You're totally right.
so
And
that's
then
it.
I do want to touch on like I think I have a lot of like entrepreneurs out there have the same insecurities out there when it comes down to the need to work. They like we
Mhm.
work so hard, and I see so many of these big time millionaire entrepreneurs work so hard until they get burnt out, and I think a lot of the root cause is those insecurities. Yes, there are entrepreneurs out there that work hard without insecurities, but I think a lot of them are driven because of those insecurities. I
Mhm.
definitely was, and it's because of like, oh, I need to be successful, and then someone will love me, or I need to be an entrepreneur because that's what is success is seen as, or like all these other things, and that's what makes this like obsessive drive to work as an entrepreneur rather than doing it like rather than working 14 hours a day, you work 8 hours a day. Like that's the difference between like an obsessive thing. Like every time I'm looking and I'm obsessing about something, then I'm like, oh, there's something happening here. Like for example, like I have a craving to country dance. I love country dancing. Like it was at the point where like all I would think about is country dancing. I was like, okay, what's going on here? And then that's when I was thinking like, oh, I like being validated by girls and them liking to dance with me gives me an inner need that I have. And I was like, okay, that's why I have a craving for it. So basically, anytime I have a craving for anything, that's when I'm like, oh, okay, there's some insecurity here that's making me crave. Kind of like our love conversation. There's an unmet
Right.
need somewhere. And rather than like loving someone, I'm just loving a thing, doing a thing that's meeting the unmet need instead of loving that person. But yes, that craving or love going down to it, but it's interesting how we love something in the name of the insecurity. Like, because our brain is rationalizing it, saying, like, for let's use country dancing or let's use entrepreneurship. That I would say, I love working on my business. I love working hard and I love working on it. But in reality, I just have an insecurity that I'm not good enough, that I need to make progress in order for someone to love me. Those are all insecurities. But if you would have asked me 5 years ago, they say, Victor, why do you work on your business? It's like, I love working on my business. I'm just so energized to work on my business. But in reality, I have these insecurities, but we do it in the name of love and cover it up in fear, which is really fascinating.
Right. Because most love, that as we understand it, really is fear disguised as need, right? So again, it comes down to your mind. Is you're operating system, right? So your mind, what are you going to feed your mind? There are so many amazing tools that we can use and we can learn and we can grow to help and nurture our mind and choose things that can help us to let go of those fears or heal those wounds inside of us, which will automatically just the fear will dissipate once we heal those wounds, right? So I guess for me, what I would say is, just be conscious of what you're choosing. Maybe write them down in a journal, draw a line in the middle of your piece of paper. What are all the things below the line that I'm doing? And what are all the things above the line that I'm doing or feeling, right? Emotions, thoughts, feelings. And then at least you can see something. You can see where your attention is going, and then make a conscious choice to do something else. Like, okay, I'm going to start a meditation practice. Maybe I'm going to start a yoga practice. I mean, all of these things will help you to get more in touch with the mind body connection, and also get more in touch with your ability to consciously create your life instead of being dragged around by your fears, because your fears are dragging you around creating your life right now. You want to put yourself back in the driver's seat, right? And you want to be conscious. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. There's a lot of tools to do that. You can do that through vision boards. You can do that through all kinds of exercises to help you be conscious of your thoughts and to observe, become the observer. I mean, you know yourself, you are the observer, but how often do you actually tap into that part of you? What am I
Yeah.
watching now? What am I thinking now? Why am I thinking that? Is that what I want to think? If
Yeah.
not, this is what I want to think. You can set a daily mantra for yourself, right? Or even an intention, a word. Today, I'm going to go through my entire day in gratitude. And no matter what happens, I'm going to choose to find some type of gratitude for that situation, right? Because then all of a sudden your energetic frequency rises. There's a great book by David Hawkins called Power versus Force, and he talks all about the map of consciousness. And you can see where you are in your thought system, in your energetic frequency, above the line or below the line. And there are tools to help you get to that next place.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I think a lot of us, when it comes down to the insecurities, like I think a lot of us are just constantly like once we run away from those things, it just makes it really, really difficult for us. And I want to get your thoughts. Is there anything else that's been top of mind for you lately that you think is really important to cover? Like you either like are seeing a lot of things in this particular area, and you're like, hey, I see a lot of people unhappy because of A, B, and C. Is there anything else that you kind of want to cover that you think is really important?
I think there's a lot of things going on right now in the world in general, right? I think, first of
Mhm.
all, social media, it's great for things like this, right? It's great to meet people. It's great to be able to connect with so many people all over the world. So, social media can be a great tool. It can also be a disaster, right? Because it sucks the life out of you if you are just constantly trolling or scrolling and reading things that are now part of what you're feeding your mind, right? Be conscious of what you are looking at on your social media feeds. I would go through and I would take a look at all of the things that help my mind be above the line, right? And anything below the line, you don't necessarily have to unfriend people if you on Facebook in particular, if you don't want to really unfriend a person, but you can definitely unfollow, right? Anything that brings your energy level down, unfollow, 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 right? Things that will help raise your energetic vibration, search them out. There's so many amazing tools out there that you can use that will help you to lift your energetic vibration, because ultimately you're the one that's in charge of where your energy goes, right? So where your attention goes, your energy flows. Your energy is your greatest commodity, right? You were talking about that earlier. You love someone who's got a lot of energy, right? So there's a lot of energy, but our mind is kind of like, think of like a border collie, right? Do you know what a border collie is,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
they're really, really smart dogs and they have a lot of energy, right? And typically they're used for herding sheep. That's what they do,
Mhm.
right? And they're really good at it. And if you give them a task, they will get it done and they will do it really, really well. But if you sit them in a living room and you don't give them something to do, what do you think is going to happen to your living room?
Get me torn up.
Tear it up, right? The same thing happens with your mind, right? If you give your mind an intention that is helpful, right? It's going to do an amazing job in helping you create a life you love and helping you to create happiness and joy in your world. But if you don't give it an intention, it's going to tear down your world because it's so powerful. It's so powerful and it will just be pulled in any direction that it wants to go. And sadly, most of what's out there for us to consume is negative, right? And why is that? Because fear sells. When you're
Yeah.
afraid, you buy stuff. You buy a lot of things to make yourself feel better. So everything that's coming at you wants you to be afraid. Be really, really afraid. Don't feel safe so that you can buy this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, and then you'll feel better. But that's not true, right?
Hmm.
You have the ability to make your own happiness and create your own happiness, but you have to give your mind something to do. So I would say, get very clear and understand. Don't be so allowing of mind wandering, right? You have to be vigilant to watch over your thoughts because your thoughts are your greatest commodity and they are creating your world.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And if you're a person out there that's just trying to get started with really understanding that your thoughts and being mindful and understanding that your thoughts are in there and you are separate from your thoughts, really,
Mhm.
it was really life changing when I started writing down my thoughts and basically talking to my inner critic. And when I first talked to my inner critic inside of myself, like it was like 3 paragraphs long. I was like, "Why are you writing when you could be working? You keep like you're fat. You should be working. Like, why aren't you working out? Why aren't you doing this? You got to be progressing." And eventually, like once I saw everything, I was like, "Okay, let me communicate with this inner critic." It's like, why do you want me to work so hard? Like, why? Like, I understand you want me to work. Cool, awesome. I got that covered. Why do you want me to work so hard? It's because we have to be successful. Like, if we're not successful, people won't love us. Like, we have to be loved. And it's like, why? Why are you like, why? And then kind of understanding, and eventually, like, you'll understand, like, oh, like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like once you get down to it, it's like, oh, I was afraid that someone won't love me. Like, and once you have that conversation, it's going to be so much more powerful. So it first starts with like awareness, saying, okay, I understand that inner critic is in there. That's a lot of where I think a lot of pain and fear comes from the inner critic for most people. At least for me,
Mhm.
that's where most of mine does, at least, saying I'm not good enough. You have to progress. You have to be successful. Like, that's where all those like thoughts come from. And that's where I really start to have that conversation with it eventually and say, like, hey, like, why do we need to believe these things? Like, why is this happening? And from there, you're really able to make a lot of changes with yourself. So saying, like, where you're not running away from the insecurities of those things and being able to tackle it head on. It's really amazing what you are able to talk with there. And it sounds like a if you haven't done it before, it sounds like a crazy person, but you really can have these conversations within yourself, and they are like real, like, I want to say, characters inside of your head. And if you think it like that, it's like, for example, if there's a piece of cake in front of me, you have one person that's saying, hey, eat the cake, it's going to taste so good, and then the other person saying, hey, you don't need the calories, don't eat it. And like, they're different characters, they're different people, different personalities, different motivations, different fears, different everything, like completely different
Mhm.
personalities. In our brain, it's totally normal though. Like, so for example, I'd be working, I'll be super serious, like, I'm not actually super serious, but let's say I'm working and being super serious, And as soon as my friend calls me, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, what's up, my man? Oh my gosh, this is crazy!" And like literally, like I am the same person. I just completely changed my personality within seconds of just getting a phone call. And if you were like an alien, you'd be like, "Oh, this is a crazy human." It was like, "No, this is a normal human. This is how normal humans are." And but in reality, it's pretty crazy actually. This is like a normal thing. And like this is how we are. We all have these multiple personalities, multiple characters inside of us that are totally shaping about who we are. It's just really fascinating is the whole thing. It really
Yeah.
is.
And I think it's the awareness of it that's important, right?
Mhm.
And to realize, and getting back to the volleyball analogy, because you were saying that you're into volleyball. I used to be a
Mhm.
volleyball player
Oh,
too.
really? That's awesome.
Yeah. So I remember being in certain games, right? And these were like really big deals, right? In tournaments and things like that. And all of a sudden you have a bad serve or you take a bad shot and then you're in your head, right? And your head is like, oh man, you stink. You're terrible. You're awful. What's wrong with you? Get in the game. You're going to lose this game, right? And you have to stop for a moment and just realize that negative chatter in your mind is not true. That is your
Mhm.
fearful self trying to take over. And at that moment, I would say this, I would clap my hands together and I would just say, be here now. Be here now, not in the past, not in the future, not in the past saying you're terrible, look what you did, not in the future saying you're going to lose this game, right?
Yeah.
You have to stop and you have to literally be in this moment because right now is the only time you have to make a choice. And then you choose, am I choosing love or am I choosing fear? So you have to do something to break it, stop that mind chatter, and then ask yourself, am I choosing love or fear? I choose love because I know that when I choose love, I'm going to create happiness in my world. I also
Mhm.
know when I choose fear, the opposite is going to happen. So realize that you are a conscious creator. That's who you are. And you have a choice, 60,000 choices every day to create a new life. Right now, everybody listening has a choice to create happiness in their life right now. They just have to
Mhm.
stop and make a choice, love or fear. Simple,
Yeah,
but not always easy.
yeah, and I find like the hard to find the balance between thinking, but between letting go of certain thoughts and not trying to repress them, meaning that like the balance of like repressing thoughts and the balance of having that conversation with the thoughts. And because I'm in a place right now where I'm like letting go of all attachments, kind of like what you said, like letting go all meaning of things. I've
Mhm.
really started to do that kind of at scale, where I said like, okay, what if I got my ham chopped off? Like, what, like would I still be me? It's like yes, but like I'd be like, but like I need my hand. Like I wouldn't be able to do this without my hand. But like letting go, kind of like all of attachment related to that. Like, and I even like do like visualizations, like throwing my phone inside of a lake. Like I'd be like, oh my gosh, my world's over. It's like actually it's kind of not. And like when you really think about it, but like letting go all attachment, all meaning to the things around us,
Mhm.
and going through that process. But basically where I'm going with that is there's I'm trying to find that balance with between letting go of my thoughts and letting go of the attachment and kind of almost repressing them. I guess that's the difference. Is like repressing and letting go, but we're
Mhm.
like basically talking about it and not talking about it. Is where I'm trying to find the balance of do I need to have the conversation or can I just let it go where it kind of gets sort of repressed? What are your thoughts on that?
We never want to repress anything, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're just going to have to bring it back up again and look at it all over again. So repressing is just like stuffing it down, which, like you said, you don't want to do that. So I think
Mhm.
maybe it's just forgiveness, right? The act of forgiveness. Like, do I need my phone? No. Would I like to have my phone for all of the reasons that make me feel safe? Sure. But let's forgive my need to have the phone and realize that that is a natural part of being human, right? Let's forgive my need to have things in my life because it's a natural part of being human. But then again, you don't want to repress that. And also it's not a bad thing to be successful. It's not a bad thing to have things in your life that make your life easier, right? So
Mhm.
it's important to forgive your idea that they're bringing you safety or that you need them in order to be happier, but just realize that you can find that happiness in yourself. And when you show up and you can be of service from a place of love, all of the things you need are just going to come to you because the law of attraction is in motion.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I wanted to ask you one more question about the competitiveness. You brought up
Mhm.
in volleyball, like being competitive and going in tournaments and things like that. And when I played sand volleyball, I couldn't figure out why I wasn't competitive. I was like, I'm extremely driven, extremely driven. Like I'm chasing after the ball, I'm going out of bounds, like saving it, like all these other things. But I didn't keep score. Like I didn't care. I didn't care about like anything about the score. They'd be like eight. Like they'd be like, Victor, why are you working so hard? I'm like, I don't know. I just find it fun. I find like it's just really fun. And but I didn't care about the score. And I realized, oh, these people are relying on their self worth, saying if I don't win this game, then I am a loser, or I won't get love, or anything else like that. And is there a scenario where competitiveness is not from insecurity? Like I've only seen the way I understand competitiveness, it's only from insecurities. From what I see, is there a scenario where competitiveness cannot be an insecurity? I haven't seen that. I'd love to
That's
hear from
actually
you
a
though.
really good question. And I don't know the answer at this particular moment.
Uh-huh.
But I love that you brought that up because
Uh-huh.
I don't play competitive sports anymore because I ended up hurting myself all the time, right?
Yeah.
Because when I get into sports, like I just want to, I want to do the best that I can do, partially because it makes me happy, right? To know that I can do these things, right? That makes me happy. It's like the sense of like, wow, I did this thing and I was able to, win this game. And I played, competitive mixed doubles, sand volleyball too. So,
Wow.
I'm on the court and it's like most of my partners were way more competitive than me. So I think it was more of like, I didn't want to let them down kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
I want to prove my worthiness of being their partner. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And maybe because I just don't have that need to do that in my life anymore, and I'm not in a competitive situation. That's why I love yoga now. I love kayaking. I love hiking. I love all of the non-competitive things in this world to explore that I can just share and not actually have to be competing. So, I think you're right. I think it does have to do with fear. And maybe that's why they just don't interest me anymore. Maybe that part of me is in the past and I don't need to revisit, that fear in exchange for bodily harm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I find myself working so much less because I keep tackling all these insecurities inside of myself, and like I used to work 14 hours a day, and now I really just don't work that much anymore just because every insecurity I untackle is like they say, "Oh, you got to work." And I'm like, do I really though? I'd rather just go like I don't know, like have a conversation outside. Like I really like it makes it where it's like, hey, do I would rather just go do something fun and like rather than always like work so that every insecurity I tackle it makes it where I work less. So I obviously I want to keep working. I have to make sure I keep working, number one. But it's really interesting how like every insecurity I tackle, it's like I'm like, wow, I guess I just don't need to do this anymore. It's just really, really fascinating. So I hope I keep working is the hope. But I guess if the more you tackle these insecurities, the more you see that nothing really matters. Really, like for example, I used to care so much about success, so much about money, so much about wealth, and I realized like, hey, it really doesn't even matter. And then like the more I tackle and the more less meaning I give things, basically,
Mhm.
the less I like less I work on them. And now I'm like, I could just literally sit in my room all day if I really wanted to, and nothing horrible would happen. So yeah.
So here's the thing that's interesting. I guess it depends on how do you define work, right? Because if you can do something that you love and be of service, that can be work, right?
Yeah.
And that's the part of work smarter, not harder, right? So then you're actually being of service and people want what you have and you love it. You love what you do, right? So in that sense, you can work every day really, but without ever really working.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just doing what you love and being using your mind, right? Because your mind is your operating system. And with intention, like figure it out. How do I make this a service that can actually provide me with an income that can help me to share my message like you're sharing right now with people that it will help.
Yeah. I
You
love
can
that.
really enjoy doing it. And then people are getting value of it from it too.
Yeah. I love that. Before we close out, is there anything else that you want to mention? It could have been any conversation that we've had so far, or anything that you want to make sure that we cover before we sign off.
I think we've covered quite a bit. I mean, most of what I have learned has just been an accumulation through my relationships, my experiences, and I mean, gosh, we could go on for hours and days, right? There's so much good information to talk about and share. But I think we did a lot. I think we covered actually more than I thought we would today. So I
Yeah.
think we've hit on a lot of points today for people.
Yeah, we definitely did. So if your mind isn't like boom right now, it should be. So thank you. Well, thank you so much, Terry, for joining today. That's all we have time for today. I want to thank all our viewers for engaging in our live session here at the Mind Workshop Podcast. Great news, guys. The Mind Workshop Podcast will be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts in September. You'll be able to tune in on your favorite episodes on the go. I'm really pumped because I usually listen to podcasts through audio anyway. So I'm super glad we're on that. And again, we are live every Wednesday and Thursday from 12 to 3 Central. And it's all possible because of Cross Skills VAs. So thank you so much, guys. And Terry, thank you again so much for joining today.
Thank you, Victor. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for